House Report Number 113-340, offered by Mr. Young of Alaska.
Pursuant to House Resolution 472, the gentleman from Alaska, Mr. Young, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Alaska.
Mr. Chairman, the Alaska Native Allotment Act allowed Alaska Natives to acquire 160 acres of federal land. Approximately 2,800 Alaska Natives served in the military during the Vietnam War, and because of their absence, they do not have an opportunity to apply for their native allotment. In 1998, Congress passed a law that provided certain Alaska Native veterans, Vietnam veterans, an opportunity to obtain an allotment. One of my constituents, Mr. William Alstrom, applied for an allotment in accordance with this law. During the war, he served honorably in the Air Force. Mr. Alstrom was a lifetime resident of St. Mary's, Alaska, a village of about 500 people, mostly Yupik Eskimos residents located in the lower Yukon River in southwestern Alaska. His family has a long history in the region, helping to settle the area and operating the first general store. During World War II, Mr. Alstrom's father, Fred, was a member of the Alaska Territorial Guard of the Alaskan or the Eskimo Scouts, a military reserve component of the U.S. Army organized in 1942. Following a TB outbreak in 1954, Mr. Williams was sent to a boarding school in southeast Alaska with many other children from Alaska villages. As the Vietnam War escalated, he graduated from one of these boarding schools and promptly enlisted in the U.S. Air Force, serving his country. Soon thereafter, he left his wife and 2 children stateside and headed to Southeast Asia. During the war, the newly minted Sergeant Alstrom served in Thailand, preparing aircraft on their way to strike North Vietnam. On the completion of his service, Mr. Williams and his family returned home to St. Mary's, where he invested himself in his village and continued to grow and raise his family. Today, Mr. Williams continues to serve, this time as mayor of his community and president of his village corporation. In 2002, Mr. Williams applied for Alaska Native Veterans allotment. It was entitled by law. Following the extensive application vetting process in 2009, the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, deeded him 2 80-acre parcels located in the Yukon Delta National Wildlife Refuge. With his deed in hand, Williams transported lumber and other supplies to one of his parcels on his skiff, spent countless hours clearing trees and brush, and finally built a small cabin and fish camp for him and his family to enjoy. Out of the blue, a few years later, the Fish and Wildlife Service realized that errors had been made by the Fish and Wildlife and BLM personnel, both in survey and an application approval process. Instead of being located in the general refuge lands, the 2 allotment parcels were located within a congressionally designated wilderness area. Conveying allotments in wilderness areas is prohibited by law. Similarly, making improvements to the land, such as constructing a cabin, cutting trees, or clearing bushes, is also prohibited. As a result, the BLM canceled the deed to the 2 parcels, plunging this Alaska Native veteran and the status of the allotment and cabin into a state of limbo. After this decision, Williams contacted me for assistance. To their credit, the BLM quickly admitted that both they and the Fish and Wildlife Service screwed up. Though after looking into their options, they also admitted they couldn't fix their mistakes administratively. In an attempt to resolve the issue, the BLM offered Williams 2 parcels of equal-sized land elsewhere in the region. While he agreed to accept one of the replacement parcels, a second parcel excluded his cabin. My amendment today would approve his application for the second original parcel, subsequently saving his cabin and fish camp for his family. Though 2 federal agencies are at fault, my Alaska Native constituent is one being forced to bear the full cost of their errors. The purpose of my amendment is simply to allow the veteran to retain the 80-acre parcel with the cabin on it at no cost to the taxpayer. An identical version of this amendment was adopted by voice vote with the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee held their markup on the Green Mountain Lookout Heritage Protection Act, of which the House version is included in today's package. As you well know, I'm no proponent of the fact that federal government is the landlord of well over 60% of my state. Think about that, 60%. I generally oppose wilderness areas. I've often had an adversarial relationship with federal land management agencies. All of that aside, this amendment is not meant to make a statement against wilderness designation, but rather to fix a unique issue for a truly deserving Vietnam veteran. At its core, fixing issues like this is what we do well when we're sent to Washington to accomplish. Mr. Alstrom, like his father before me, served this country with honor and dignity, and he deserves similar treatment from this government in return. I hope you'll join me today in fixing this unfortunate mistake and allow this gentleman and his family to move on with their lives by supporting this simple amendment to H.R. 2954. And I reserve the balance of my time. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. If no member is seeking recognition for opposition, the question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Alaska. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.